the mail and stuff like that.
Well, where are you from? Where did you grow up?
I was born in Brazos County.
Yeah.
Primarily, I grew up in the very southern edge of Robertson County.
Yeah. See, why don't I come over here so you don't have to? You don't have, I'm going to put that right there so I can just don't have to take any notes or anything. So you grew up where now?
In Robertson County,
Robertson County.
the very southern edge of it. I was born in Benchley and grew up in Benchley.
So you grew up around Hearn or around
Benchley.
Benchley? Okay.
Benchley.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, attended grade school there through the 8th grade,
Yeah.
because that's as far as this local
Yeah.
school went.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, we do that. That
Graduate-
way I can hear you. Yeah, if you mute that would help me.
yeah, graduated high school in Hearn.
Uh-huh. So so you went to Hearn High School?
Oh yeah,
Yeah, I see.
Blackshaw High School in Hearn.
Yeah.
Segregated school at the time.
What year was that?
1951.
In 51. And did you enter the service right after that, or
No,
when did you enter the service?
December 52.
December 52.
About 18 months later,
And you were in the Army, or?
in the Army.
Yeah.
Refers to it. And it's
And what? So tell me about your service. Where'd you do basic and?
I did basic at Fort Hood.
Yeah.
And after completion of basic, I stayed there as a cadre personnel platoon sergeant.
Yeah.
Until we went TO&E. At which time I transferred to the 2nd Army Division,
Mm-hmm.
who was being just reactivated, brought back on active duty, back to life.
Right.
From there, I went to Germany, served with the 1st Infantry Division,
Mm-hmm.
26th Infantry Regiment at Bamberg, Germany.
I see.
Yeah.
This has been what, 19?
That was in 1954.
In 54.
54, yes.
Okay.
With 54.
Okay.
And that was a good time to be in Germany.
Yeah.
A good time to be in almost anywhere in the world as an American soldier.
Right.
When you get to 54, after all, you're only about 8 years removed tops from World War II.
Uh-huh.
So I was a part of the occupation army. We were still occupied Germany at that time.
Uh-huh.
They hadn't signed the status of force agreement yet. The Germans were totally disarmed. They couldn't own weapons. They couldn't arrest American soldiers
Mm-hmm.
or American personnel, period.
Right.
So it was a good time to be there.
You got treated well.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
The country was still in a total state of devastation.
Right.
We had not reached the Marshall Plan and stuff like that yet.
Correct.
I should rephrase that. We were under the Marshall Plan, but we weren't under the Berlin airlift thing. That all came later.
Right.
Because we had these restoration programs with the former enemies.
Uh-huh.
And it was a good time to be in Germany or in Europe, period.
Right. What was your job? What was your specialty?
I was infantry.
Yeah.
Heavy weapons infantry.
All right. But at that time, what were your missions? What did you do? What was the nature of what you did?
I was in a mortar platoon, a chief fire direction computer, and an 81 platoon.
Uh-huh.
That didn't last too long, about 6 months, I guess, and then I was transferred to a heavy mortar company. And with the infantry was structured vastly different then versus now, because with the infantry regiment, and let me go up to the top. The 1st Infantry Division was one of 2 active infantry divisions in Germany.
Mm-hmm.
So the total combat forces stood between the West Germany and East Germany.
Mm-hmm.
And we had 1 armored division and 2 infantry divisions facing the Russians. And when you went there, I don't know about the rest of the units, but you were plainly told with the 1st Infantry Division, and we were down in the Black Forest area. Division headquarters was in Bamberg, in Wurzburg, Germany, and the 18th Infantry Regiment was in Schaffenburg. 16th was in Nuremberg. The Vardy Division Artillery, they were down at Wurzburg. I'm not Wurzburg. Can't think of it right now.
Okay.
But division headquarters was back at Wurzburg, and we were in Bamberg. So, our mission was to hold the line for 1 hour. At the end of that hour, you were to make your way back to south of the Rhine River, which was the primary line of defense, any way you could. So you expected to be totally decimated and wiped out and just kind of hours up, let's hightail it south of the Rhine, which we had prepared defensive positions.
Right.
And that 1 hour was simply to allow the civilians to evacuate, the dependents that were with the soldiers and other Department of Army civil personnel.
Right.
That was the mission.
Yeah.
So you were kind of motivated to stay alert and do your job there.
Right.
As a historical note, I might add that the 1st Infantry Division at that time had been in Germany since the beginning of World War II, since 1941.
Right.
And we are talking about now in 1954, some 12, 15 years later.
Right.
And we had personnel with that division who had been with them since they were deployed.
Wow.
In fact, we had personnel with that division who had been with the division since it was organized in 1917 aboard ship outside France, because the division was deployed from the States as the first American Expeditionary Force in 1917, which they redesignated the 1st Infantry Division.
Right.
The bloody war.
Yeah.
I came out of it as a result of being there all of this time. America, with the American military forces being a continuously evolving organization, we started the unit deployment of major forces, a redeployment. So they brought the 1st Infantry Division out of Germany after 13 years or 14 years and stationed them in Fort Riley, Kansas. Therefore, all the individuals that was with the division were reassigned according to the time they had in service and their desires, if the Army could accommodate them.
Right.
If you had less than a year left to do on your tour in Germany, you were eligible to come home with the division. If you wanted to come with the division, you could come. If you wanted to stay in Germany, you could stay in Germany. I had more than a year, but I elected to return to the States with the organization. And I imagine you can tell from the conversation that I was an admirer of that division. It was one of the finest infantry divisions, per se, in the Army.
Right.
They have a glorious history.
Yeah.
So we came back, so that the term they applied to rotation of units in space at that time was let me see, what did we call it? Gyro. I don't know what the gyro stood for, but it was the redeployments of unit. So we gyroed back to the United States as the first unit and to work the bugs out of the system, and was replaced in place by the 10th Airborne Division. They replaced us. They came in, took over our barracks, and all of the equipment, everything in place. And they brought, of course, equipment that was unique to their particular organization. But other than that, we just kind of packed up and moved out and left everything, and they were on the parade field ready to occupy the barracks, and we loaded up and headed to Bremerhaven for a ship. I stayed in Riley, Kansas till my enlistment was up, which was August of '56. And I knew I would stay in the service. I'd made up my mind by that time, but because of the lack of promotion and stuff like that, I elected to get out. Because to re-enlist, I would have stayed there.
Excuse me. Yeah.
But I can get out now. Once I'm out, I can select my unit of assignment.
Right.
So I got out and I stayed 30 days. Re-enlisted and went down to Fort Polk, Louisiana with the 1st Armored Division, which I had started my career with. And like I knew what happened because I knew the people that I would see. When we got back to Kansas with the 1st Infantry Division, we actually were running only about 40% strength because we left a lot of people in Germany. A lot of people came home for separation. And in a mortar battery, that's what it was the mortar company, but it was a 8-gun company, which is equivalent to a 105 battery. And the weapon is basically the same thing as a 105. Use the same method of fire control, target selection, acquisition, and so forth, and engagement. The only difference is the 105 has a little bit more range than the 4.2-inch mortar. The primary function of it, the reason it is required, and the mission of it was to support the regiment. It's directly under the regimental commander's control. Typically, they would deploy a platoon. We had, 12-gun company. They would deploy a platoon to support a infantry battalion, and yet the control remained with the regimental commander. So therefore, even though he's attached to a battalion, you can mask the fires of the whole company like any other time if they're within range of each other to engage a target of importance. Otherwise, the forward observers and whatnot, everything comes under the battalion commander's control, and he can say, okay, we'll put one forward observer with A company, one with B, and one with C, and then we'll utilize this thing to support the battalion. Went down to Louisiana, and from there I got my first special assignment in the Army. Actually, it was my second one, but I got my first special assignment because I wound up going to CONARC, Continental Army Command, Research and Development, Arctic Test Board, Alaska, Fort Greely.
Yeah.
On the edge of the Arctic Circle.
Wow.
Yeah. So
That was special. What year was this?
that was in 1957.
57. Okay.
And see, right now, I think probably all of your combat ready unit, all your combat units now come under the Southern Command, which is controlled by. We reassigned the general that was running the Baghdad show. What's his name? General. Oh, he's been running that theater of operation for a long time. He replaced General Singfree or something. Can't think of his name. He's currently the Army commander. He's commanding the entire fighting force in Asia, Afghanistan, and Iraq.
You mean the main guy?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Petraeus? What's his name?
Petraeus.
Petraeus? Is that who you're talking
Petraeus,
about?
yes, yes,
Petraeus?
yes.
Okay.
See, his actual title is Commander of the Southern Command,
Right.
which is operated out of Florida.
Right.
So the Middle East really comes under his control. That literally makes him the commander of all of the tactical units in the United States Army.
Right.
In CONUS.
Mhm.
Not in the Pacific or anywhere else, but in the United States, continental United States. He
Right.
commandos, see, the 82nd Airborne Tactical Force, the 1st Cavalry Force, all of these units really is under his control.
Yeah.
Because he rotated them in and out of these other hot spots. Petraeus, he's the big man there.
Yeah, he is. So, what did you do in Alaska?
Oh, I would once again. You have to understand how the Arctic Test Center was organized. At Fort Greely, that's what we had was the Arctic Test Center,
Mm-hmm.
and that meant that we had to do the cold weather testing for everything the Army has in the pipeline.
I see. Okay.
You see, we had the infantry board, we had the artillery board, we call them the ground mob, the ground mobility board, and the airborne board.
Mm-hmm.
And at that same location, we had the cold weather mountain school. So anything to do with the military, so far as cold weather gear and weapons were concerned, we did the cold weather testing on. At the time I was there, we did the test. Let's take something that we all know about: small arms, your rifles and machine guns and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
The controlled weapons, the Army standard weapons at that time, was the M1 rifle, the old M1 Grand,
Right.
the carbine, the BAR, the
Browning.
Browning automatic rifle,
Right.
the M1917 light machine gun, air cooled, the M1919A1 water cooled,
Mm-hmm.
and the Mauldus, the 50 caliber, M2.
Right.
These are the small arms that you would generally talk about: 60 millimeter mortar, 81 millimeter mortar, and a 4 deuce mortar, 4.2 inch mortar.
Mm-hmm.
So the infantry board then tested all of these weapons and cold weather gear, such as footwear, in the whole 9 yards. If the infantry used it, we tested the chemical part of it, gas masks, and anything to do with chemical warfare. We tested it, the infantry section. Artillery, of course, tested all artillery. And even though the airborne uses exactly the same equipment as the infantry, they have to had an airborne section to test it because it's uniquely mission oriented. You don't want me testing on a parachute.
Yeah. Yeah.
You don't want me airdropping or Jeep or anything. See, so they do that.
Right.
The ground mobility unit, if it rolled on the ground, they tested it. At that time, we had the M60 tank for tests. And I was in the mortar chemical section. So I had an opportunity to work directly with the present family of mortar, 81s and 4 deuces. And the special weapons that they came out with at that time. See, because in the early 60s, in 61 and 62, the battalion commander in the infantry got his own special weapons, atomic weapons. Now you can't, it's common knowledge today because it's history now. It's no longer the case. But we had atomic capability all the way down to the 155 artillery. Not many people were aware of that, but they had that. And the battalion commanders You can't have everybody's got. If you stop your control too far up the line, then by the time the decision is made, the target has disappeared. But we had atomic weapon capability at infantry battalion level. And that was what we called a Davy Crockett. So I was fortunate enough to be the test NCOIC on the Davy Crockett in Alaska when we did the cold weather test on that.
I see.
The new family of mortars, 81. With the 81 and the 4 Deuce, we didn't do any new work on them, but we did new munitions for them. Increased the range, explosiveness, the lethality of them, and so forth. But we did test the new 105 mortar, which the Army didn't adopt right away, but I think they probably have it in production now. Sighting equipment, fire control equipment, the whole 9 yards. Since we had a mortar chemical section, all of it was controlled by the same personnel, which was the mortar chemical section. We did the work on the present day gas mask that we still use. The black gas mask we wear with a filter in each cheek. Before, we had the old A1 gas mask that had one canister in one cheek. We did the work on that.
Yeah.
So it was interesting, fascinating work.
Indeed. How long were you there?
3 years.
3 years in Alaska? And then where did you go back to Louisiana then, or?
By then, the 1st Armored Division had moved. See, what got the 1st Armored Division in Louisiana? No. They had moved from Louisiana back to Fort Hood. So I went back to Fort Hood.
Back to Fort Hood.
As a passing note, I had 4 tours with the 1st Armored Division. Wait a minute, let me see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tours with the 1st Armored Division.
Right.
4 at Hood and 1 in Louisiana.
Yeah.
And the first tour, let me put it this way. I had 4 tours at Fort Hood. Part of one of them was with the 4th Armored Division.
Right.
All the rest were with the 1st Armored Division. Except one, the last one, it was with the 2nd Armored Division.
Yeah.
Not many people can say this. I have served with every active armored division. 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th.
I'll be darned.
In a 20-year period.
Yeah.
I served with the 1st Armored Division at Hood, went to the 4th Armored Division, served there, went to Germany to the 1st Infantry Division.
Right.
Came back to Kansas with it, and went to Louisiana, back to the 1st Armored Division. Went to Alaska to Research and Development, back to the 1st Armored Division. Went to Korea to the 1st Cav Division. From there to Fort Benning, Georgia, Weapons Department, Infantry School, as an instructor. From there to Germany, 3rd Armored Division. From there to Fort Bragg Special Warfare Center, to the MATA School, Military Advisory, the Assistant Advisory School, to Vietnam, back to Fort Hood, 1st Armored Division, back to Vietnam, to the 1st Cav Division.
Wow.
Back to Fort Hood, 2nd Armored Division. Hell on wheels. Out of there, retirement.
Goodness gracious. So so we left it. You'd come back from Alaska, you're back to Fort Hood.
Fort Hood. Same company, same platoon, same thing. The 4 Deuce Mortar Platoon.
Right.
And from there we go to Korea, 1st Cav Division.
Where are we now? About 1961? Where are we now?
62.
62. Okay.
62.
Okay.
Went in there in 61. You're right, 61.
Okay.
61. And came out in 62, 15 months later, 16, to Fort Benning, Georgia.
What'd you do in Korea?
A mortar platoon. Actually, I went in there and I had my choice. Any job in the mortar platoon, come commander. They look at your record and say, well, you're uniquely qualified for this because rah, rah, rah. you've been in research and development on the weapon and all that stuff. But every MOS, almost everyone carries covers more than one weapon. A light weapons infantryman has to know not only his rifle, but he should know light machine guns and 60 mortars and stuff like that. So we had a weapon in that platoon, in that MOS, that I did not know at that time. I had never been exposed to it, and it was it was an assault gun platoon. It was an M60 SPAT, anti-tank gun mounted in a personnel carrier or on a Jeep, a 90 millimeter gun. So I told, and I was drawing proficiency pay in the MOS, so I told company commander that I would take any one of his jobs he had other than platoon sergeant, because he had a platoon sergeant, and I was, after all, just an E5. And he had an E6 as a platoon sergeant. But I would appreciate the opportunity to go with the SPAT to learn this weapon in my MOS. So he said, fine, when you're ready to go, when you learn all you want to down there, come on back. Because this weapon was on my MOS test, which I always pass in good shape, you know, with no problem. But I just wanted to know. So I went down and stayed 2 weeks and then told him I'm ready to go. So he made me Fire Direction Center Chief. Chief Fire Direction. And because we were coming up for for the annual ATP. And once again, in Korea, I was sitting right there at the foot of Freedom Bridge on the DMZ. There's nothing between us and the DMZ but the Yalu River. And right across the river, we used to go up in that. I went to the NCO Academy there, and of course, the NCO Academy was in the DMZ, and you had to do your night patrols and all that crap, and we had to do them anyway. But once it was over, but that's where we were, and once again, you just a stopgap measure there, because we was supposed to hold that area for 4 hours and then drop back to south of Yanjico somewhere. You know, eventually you're working your way back to Pusan or Seoul. Yeah. The objective was to hold them up long enough to get reinforcement and then protect Seoul. But when I left Korea and went back to Fort Benning, went to the United States Army Instructor Training School and stayed in Benning, I guess, for 2.5 years. I was always on the move after about a year or two. Never spent 3 years in any place until my final stay at Hood. And I didn't stay 3 years then, I don't think.
Yeah.
But I went into Benning in the summer of '62 and left out in the summer of '65, going to Germany. I lasted a year in Germany that time. See, I had volunteered. By that time, Vietnam was heating up.
Right.
So I volunteered early on in about '64 to go to Vietnam, and I got my 1049 volunteer request for transfer. I got it back in the earlier part of '65, saying that no vacancy, no requirement for my MOS in Vietnam at the time. 3 months later, of course, because when you volunteer for overseas assignment or volunteer for transfer, you're just flat volunteering. This is my preference, you know.
Right.
3 months later, I got orders for Germany.
So you're going back to Germany then?
Took me back to Germany.
Yeah.
And I went to 3rd Army Division, Spearhead Division. Sitting in the Folder Gap, once again, eyeball with the Russians. And I stayed there. I lasted a year. And I went into that one just like I had gone into others. You know, the unit was in trouble. We at that time, your special weapons, every year you had to pass a technical proficiency test. With the mortars, it was the same thing, but they call it an ATP. You know, it's a live firing test. You have to pass it and prove that you're combat ready. All of the combat units go through the same thing. Infantry company has to take their ATP. Tank companies have to do their live firing. This is a proficiency test one must pass to prove he's ready for combat. And with your special weapons, it's critical. At that time, we had various ratings for units that were combat ready. And since a division is a major command capable of sustained operation on their own for extended period of time with all their support services, if a division had 3 failures on special weapons, and remember, special weapons are all the way down to infantry battalion level. In an armored division, you had 4 infantry battalions. And then you've got Diverted that's got I don't know how many 155 battery and 8-inch battery. And then missiles, because we have certain tactical missiles. And if you get 3 failures, you don't have to worry. From that 3rd failure, all of these failures, we gonna get commanders relieved to include the division commander, probably ADC. So you kind of walk. You got a high priority job here.
Right.
And in my case, I went in there and they'd already had 2 failures.
Yeah.
They took one look at my records, sacked me up and sent me up to wild flicking. Oh. Horns fell to somewhere, wherever the division was out on field training exercise. Battalion commander called me in and says, "I'll tell you what, you just a man. We've been waiting. My Crockett section is next up for a TPI." And he knew that already in advance. That section was going to be the next one here. Simple elimination would have did that, I imagine, because they know how they tested them last year and whatnot, you know. Yeah. And he expected to be tested within 2 weeks after we got back off this exercise. And he promised me that if I took that platoon and passed his the TPI, he would promote me. You know, that was a no-brainer. He wanted to know if I could do it. Of course I can do it. I'm coming out of school where I spent the last 3 years teaching the weapon.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So that's not a big deal. Providing I have the support services I need. What's that? Time to train.
Right.
Looked him straight in the eye and says, he says, "Well, you can have that." I said, "I have to write my own training schedule." It's just a power grab on my part. I don't want to say that on television, of course.
Right.
But he gave me everything I requested, and see, we were authorized to run 150% strength.
Yes, sir.
And the organization called for like 30 people, so you know we're up there near 45 people.
Right.
He gave me everything. And in order to get people into the organization, you know where they had to come from, the infantry line company. And that meant no. So right away, you know, to make the morale situation and everything, we get 150% strength in the platoon or the section. Nobody can interfere with us because we write our own. I write my own training schedule, and ED'd from all duties. No guard, no extra, no details. No, this makes the troops happy. See, and you write in there. You write a night exercise of 4 hours. If it's just a road march, you get the next day off for compensatory time. So, hey.
That's okay.
Yeah, they loved it too.
So you were in Germany a year?
I was in Germany a year.
And then you came back?
Went back via the Special Warfare Center to school.
Where was that?
Fort Bragg, North Carolina.
Fort Bragg, okay.
Vietnamese, they call it the Matter School.
Right.
Military Assistant Advisory School. It was a 12-week school, so you hang out there, and the emphasis was not on tactics. Of course, everybody had to qualify at the small arms and all that stuff, but the emphasis there was on physical conditioning and Vietnamese language. From there, we went in. I was assigned to. Well, already I was assigned out by the DA, going into from Germany, from the Third Army Division. I was saying, because it was E7 and the 7, 8s, and 9s. It was at that time being assigned by and promoted by the Department of Army. So went in there, and from there I was assigned to MACV Team 87 in Vietnam, advisory team, to the 10th ARVN Division.
So when did you first get in country?
1956, August of 56.
66.
66,
Yeah.
August of 66.
August of 66. Things were pretty hot then, weren't
They were really heating up.
they? Yeah.
They were really heating up.
Yeah.
And I was assigned to Team 87, which was located down on Highway 1 with the 10th ARVN Division. We had, we were authorized to have at battalion level 4 military advisors, 2 officers and 2 enlisted. A senior officer, which was generally a captain, he's going to be advising, sometime a major, but more than likely a captain. He's going to be advising the battalion commander. The assistant senior advisor are going to be a first lieutenant, hopefully, or second lieutenant, but more than likely a first lieutenant. Senior advisor may even be a major. A lieutenant colonel advises the brigade commander, which is a colonel, full colonel, but he's going to be a lieutenant colonel. And the structure was that the officers come out, the officer advisors do 9 months in the field as an advisor and get credit for a year's command time. So everybody's going to get his ticket punched. The enlisteds were there for the duration.
Right. And that was you.
That was me.
That was you.
And I was the senior enlisted, so I'm the weapons advisor.
Your weapons advisor.
Supposedly, and see, once again, these crew serve weapons support the battalion. So I should have been with the battalion, but that's not my choice. I don't want to be with the battalion senior advisor. And I never was. But this was my choice, because I explained to the captain each one of them that I had when I was there. If one of us get hurt, we probably both will get hurt. You got no senior people left here. So you got 2 junior. So I will take the junior officer under my wing, and we'll operate together. And this junior NCO can go with you. And that's the way we operated. The Vietnamese, and I wouldn't want to say that on television, but they really did not want you there. Except for one thing. They can't communicate with the Americans. They cannot get fire support from the artillery or the Air Force. Can't get no helicopter. They have to have you. Because when you out there in the nearest unit of fire support is Madisonville, you want the long-range artillery, you want the aircraft support, they can't talk to the Americans. Not because of language, they simply not in the chain. You do.
Yeah.
If you come on attack, or if you need it, you got it. Just like with the Americans, never failed, never had a problem. But
so did you find yourself in some combat situations?
Oh, yeah.
Some pretty salty combat
yeah.
situations?
Oh yes.
Do you need to get that?
No,
Okay.
no. My wife's right.
Well, tell me about that. Tell me about some.
Do we have to?
No, if you're not comfortable with it.
First of all, you go out with you when you get there, you go to your unit, and you are there with the unit.
Yeah.
And in my case, I only had 4 of us there for the first 2 months. The junior NCO, which was rotating out after 2 months, they never replaced him because of, I guess, really don't have the personnel. So that was just me and 2 officers was there all the time. So that let the battalion the battalion senior advisor, he was always on his own. Of course, everybody have interpreters if you need interpreters. I never had anybody there that spoke the language with me other than me. I didn't need an interpreter, but I always had one. I didn't need a radio operator, a carrier, a bearer, a packer. But I had one, not to carry the radio, just because they assigned him. I consider him a bodyguard more than anything. I carried the radio. The Prick 25, I carried. And the senior advisor said, Bailey, that's what that guy's for. Yes, but at the first sound of a rifle going off, I'm hitting the deck the same as you, and if I'm over there, 10 feet away, and the radio operator, the radio carrier is over there, he may not come to me, and I sure may not go to him. But when I hit the ground, if it's on my back, I got it.
Right. Right.
And I carried my radio.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. But he's there, but I don't need him.
Yeah.
At that age, I was in good shape. I carried a radio.
Yeah.
And all of the ammunition I can pack.
Yeah.
That's another thing. See, when you go out with these people, you have to live with them. You are part of their organization. And if you, and I've had officers who leave, I've had people who could not eat the food, literally. And if you can't, you got a hard way to go. Because the Americans don't support you with the armed, in the same fashion they support themselves. See? You go in there and you in there for 3 or 4 months, you may or may not see an American helicopter because you may or may not be in a fire-based situation. And when they move from this encampment to the next, you are in for a revelation. Because the whole unit moves, and they generally walk, and they don't have the transportation.
Right.
And walking right with them is their wives and children and livestock. I mean, the next meal, the pigs, the ducks, the chickens, and everything else. And if you get mail once a month, then you will get rations. Part of those rations is a care package from the Red Cross. Seriously. You are getting a care package.
Wow.
Some of your things, first of all, your orders, I guess everybody's orders, mine stated civilian clothes required. Now, if they assign you back at one of the intelligence schools or something like that, of course, you know. Of course, the CIA, just like the intelligence services are now. Make no mistake about it. Not every person you see in the field uniform is a military personnel today in Baghdad. Not every person that is in civilian clothes is necessarily a soldier.
Right.
I mean, a civilian.
A civilian. Right.
We have the same situation. A lot of our work done was done for what it is the CIA, because if you ever hear a soldier, you say, "Who were you with in Vietnam?" Well, if he says something like, "I was with the company," you'll probably say, "What company?" he will realize right away that you don't know that was code talk for the CIA. If you meet a soldier or an airman and he says, I was with Air America, bullshit, that was just a cover for the CIA. That's all it was. Intelligence gathering. So a lot of our work was with these people. And if you were with an S5 organization, you were going to be, that's who you're going to be reporting to. You know, out there in the civilian area, reconstruction, schools, and all this other junk, that's where it's at. But you have to consider yourself as being able to survive with them on what they live on. Back in the school, you done had the food, but now we're talking about food that's prepared by Vietnamese that's working for the army. They're in the school. A good part of the teachers were Vietnamese. I mean, the language training people, all of them were, so far as I know. Male and female, more female than male. But, so there, the food might be Vietnamese, but it ain't fresh off the stove in Vietnam.
Right.
I didn't have a problem with it.
Yeah.
I had an officer one time, though, who could not eat the food. He just flat couldn't eat it. So he went to the field light on ammunition and heavy on food. After 2 weeks, he's always out anyway. And he tried to... he wanted everybody to carry enough food to support him. Ain't happening.
Yeah.
Sorry, Captain, it ain't happening.
Right.
I'm carrying a double basic load of ammunition, and we didn't have M16s or M1s. We had carbines because that's what the Vietnamese used. After all, they're small in stature, and the ammunition is lighter, and the weapon is lighter. Not as much recoil, so they had carbines. That was their primary rifle.
Right.
And that's what then we had because they had an ample supply of ammunition. So I got my carbine, about 500 rounds of ammunition, and that PRC-10, and I'm ready to roll. And when they said, time to eat, I'm right there. We ate with the staff, so we got the best of it. It wasn't like you had a private down there feeding you. We ate with the battalion commander and his staff.
Right.
What he eats, I eat. If it didn't kill him, it's not going to kill me. But that captain... When you set up at night in any kind of tactical situation, you set up in what we refer to now as a green line, a safe zone. That just means in a security area. You got the rifle companies around you, and you got the patrols out and all that stuff, layers and layers. We set up at night. That captain could not sleep inside the green line. He'd have to have cat holes all over there. I have known he'd be sleeping outside of the outside of the main line for us from here to your car. Because his dysentery so bad, he just can't stay in there.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
so how long were you in Vietnam the first time?
I was a year.
1 year.
I was a year there the second time.
And suffice it to say, I know you don't want to speak specifically of the combat situations, but you were in combat situations quite a bit.
Oh yeah, yeah. We when you sit up in a base camp, and when I went in, we were setting up down at a village on Highway 1.
Yeah.
Right on the border. And we used to run the night patrols and stuff like that every night, and ambush sites and whatnot. And that was a kind of an elective thing. You could go out on those if you wanted to, or you weren't required. We almost never went out. But if they got in trouble, we called in a necessary fire. And we were only attacked one time in that village, and that was more or less a probing thing. Then we had the unfortunate, by then, about the third or fourth month, because that other fella had left, and he'd been gone about 2 weeks, and we had an attack that was 74 kilometers from us at a village called Vo Su. The 10th Army Division had a regiment up there at Vo Su, sitting outside the village to secure the village. We're sitting outside this village down here to secure this village. In the what was virtually in the shadows of the Nui Badin, the Black Virgin Mountain. So we got orders that they had been overran to go up there and to go up there and relieve the pressure on them. We knew before at the end of the first day, because the attack, we got a call out like 1 o'clock in the morning. The battalion got the alert to move, so we were on the road the next morning at about 10 o'clock. And we weren't. It was just kind of hellfire for leather because they were in dire straits up there. By the end of the first day, they were totally overran. We walked in there 3 days later, 76 kilometers away, and that's with women, children, pigs, ducks, chickens, and everything. Leeches, you might add. Oh my God! Because in that area, you're right, you're heading up toward the Parrot Beak area, and that was my first experience with leeches. When a leech initially bites you, it feels about like a fire ant sting, but it's just one. See, so you will rub it like that or something through your battle dress uniform and not even be thinking about it. You might get another one that's itching down under your shoelace or something, and you'll do the same thing. You don't think about it. So at the end of the middle of that second day, we stopped for a break. And before we can stop, about half the Vietnamese are undressing. And then you can see leeches all over, particularly on the lower part of their body, and once in a while on their chest and whatnot. And they just knock them off and whatnot. And me and this lieutenant, I was walking around saying, "Boy, I'm so glad I don't have any." And the lieutenant said, "Me too." He said, "I think I'll check just to be sure anyway." And he pulled up his trouser leg, and they were all over his leg. Oh man. Well, I guess I better check. And I was in the same shape. And with the leech, if you put salt on him or take a cigarette, he'll turn loose.
Right.
But just to pull him off, they don't want you to do that because his mouth is stuck to you, and whatever he's drawing your blood, and they're afraid you'll leave part of him there, because he's only attached by his mouth, and it causes infection. Ha! Bam, bam! I thump him right off. Get rid of these suckers. From that time on, I knew exactly what a leech bite felt like. So I never got any warm in the mouth or anything, because the instant I feel it, I just reach down and catch my pants just like this and rub them together like that, create the heat, squish it, kill him. Simply by taking him and putting him in there, in between that cloth like that. And he's gone. He's gone. But that lieutenant had a problem. And he was a good officer. He was a West Pointer. His father was a major general. But that was the end of the line for him, because the leech bites never would heal up. 3 months later, they still there, open sores. And if it did kind of heal over where you thought it was healed, you know what happened? The next time we went into leech country, leech got in the same spot again, every time. Well, short story there, we arrived up there without incident, and when we got there were signs posted all over the village that said that the 52nd had been overran by them. When we got there, what had happened, out of a battalion of 1,096 men, there were only 11 survivors. And one of those was an American who was wounded 3 days earlier, and when they shot him, he fell in a drain ditch around the hooches that drains the water out of the perimeter.
Right.
And the water was covered his body here, but it was right above his ears. And he was living, and they claimed that they said later that he had one of his lungs had a hole in it, and it had filled up with water, but that's what saved him, because when he breathed in and out, the water was heavier to move in the air, so it didn't suck any water over into the other lung. It just let it, and he didn't have a cold or anything, so let it free flow. He survived.
Yeah.
The others were dead, all three of them.
Yeah.
And there were signs posted all over the village that said that the 48th was going to have the same fate as the 52nd, that they would kill us.
I see.
So we were running 100% alert around there for the first week or 10 days. And the notices kept appearing in the village and whatnot.
Yeah.
So, short story on that was, we'd been there about 3 weeks and we got a deserter in. And he was the regimental executive officer of this NVA unit, the 96th Red Horse Regiment out of North Vietnam.
Mm-hmm.
So, and he told us, you're going to be attacked. He told you you're going to be attacked day after tomorrow. He gave the whole battle plan away. When he did, we of course double a patrol and battalion command. First of all, the South Vietnamese Army was staffed, most of the officers, a good part of them, particularly their battle-hardened officers, were ex-NVA people. When the French got defeated and withdrew, of course, a lot of these same people who were combat officers withdrew with them, see? And they wound up in the South Vietnamese Army. It deserted the North Vietnamese Army and wound up with the South Vietnamese Army.
Mm-hmm.
And ours was one of them. And he made plans, and him and the advisors, and we got ready for it. And no kidding, the night that, and what we had was companies out here, the block here, and we knew they'd try to outflank them, and by outflanking them, you'd funnel them into certain alleys, kill zones and whatnot. Short story was, at 1 o'clock that morning, the first round fired was a 57 recoilless, and you get out there and you're kind of on your own. You don't follow a lot of things that you do when you're with an American unit.
Right.
I never dug a foxhole in my life. And I was going to string that hammock up off the ground between two trees, sure as you live. Or a Jeep in a tree or something.
Mm-hmm.
First round it landed right on the hood of the Jeep that had the mounted American radios on it. And it just ricocheted off and exploded probably far as from here to your car from us, because we was all sleeping within proximity to that radio there.
Mm-hmm.
And it came out of the tower of the church, which was like from here to my cattle guard.
Yeah.
And and of course we had that church tower. We had it zeroed in with the mortars, immediately returned fire, and that was the end of that. He didn't get off a second round.
Yeah.
But the fight was on. And in a firefight like that, the Americans 90% of the time were directing and controlling the action. The Vietnamese wanted you, as I indicated earlier, so that you could get the necessary support. They didn't want you to tell them how to fight the fight or how to maneuver the troops, none of that. So all they want you to do is get me some support.
Mm-hmm.
And we would deliver. The next day, we wound up with 187 dead bodies out there in that jungle around that place. And we only lost 6 people.
Mm-hmm.
And the Red Horse Regiment, 3 days later, there were flyers appearing in the post on the bulletin boards and whatnot again. That the 48th owed them a debt in blood, and they would collect.
Mm-hmm.
And by name, they had all of the Americans on the wanted list, posted reward head list.
Mm-hmm.
And starting with like $1.5 million piastres for that senior advisor, all the way down to include me.
Mm-hmm.
We were all listed. And they got us. It took them a month, but they reorganized and hit us again. And that time we lost the same senior advisor. And we had changed out the lieutenant with the leeches that walked in there with us because they couldn't cure him, so they took him and moved him to the rear. And his 6 months was also up. We had a new lieutenant, and he lost a leg in the affair, and I was wounded. The captain got killed. But didn't change the outcome. We kicked their butt again, but they started this one not with a 57. They started with a mortar attack. The first round, and we knew, I knew when the second round landed that they had an observer, an aerial observer somewhere to adjust on. Because the first round landed in front of the bunker line. And the American CP was about as far from here to my trucks back in from that, because it was a small perimeter. And that second round landed behind us. I knew he had us in the bracket. Well, we had a bunker right outside the door, sandbagged back, which was there from when we got there. When the first round landed, I was laying on a cot in that, because we're living in a little house in the center, grass top hooch. I jumped up, dashed for the radio. The lieutenant dashed for the bunker. And the captain was already up, because it didn't start till about 8 in the morning. He was out over there talking to the battalion commander somewhere. And he was wearing black pajamas because that's what he slept in. We all wore black pajamas. You didn't know it from a Vietnamese. that second round landed behind us. And by that time I had battalion up on the radio. I should have grabbed the radio and ran in the bunker, but I was standing there talking on it. That third round landed right on the top of a damn palm tree, right by the front door. And the lieutenant was in the process of running from his bunk to the bunker, and it knocked him down. And I was standing there, and the shrapnel hit me all in the hand and arm and the side and rib and whatnot. And when that piece hit me in my hand, my hand just went forward because I had the radio, the mic up to my ear in my left hand, and my rifle was slung on my right shoulder. My hand went up like this. I watched it go up in slow motion and settled back down. When it got back down to where it would be hanging down, I just kept right on going with it around behind my back. I never even looked at it. I didn't see it going up, but I could just tell it was going up slow. I just kept talking on the radio. It went up woo, right on back, and all the other burning sensation and whatnot. I immediately dropped the mic, grabbed the lieutenant, helped him up, walked him out in the bunker, and then I was starting on the longest trip I ever took in my life, and that was to go back to get the radio, which was like from here to that fireplace.
Oh, bad.
And by then, they had masked their guns, and the fire was coming in all over the area, but it was mortar fire.
Right.
I looked at that damn radio, and the lieutenant said, "Don't go back out there, Bailey." I said, "I got to go get the radio." So I dashed up there and got the radio, ducked back in the bunker, handed it to him, and he started to call in a sit rep. He said, "Where you going?" I said, "I got to go find the captain." He said, no. I slapped my steel pot on, and I said, "Yeah, I got to go." Ducked outside, a hooker right to go down between the bunker and the building. And at that time, you're knee walking. You ain't running very high from the ground. Mm-hmm. When I turned that corner there, the captain was laying right there beside the house, because when the first round, he started running back to the bunker, see? And he was laying on his back, and his feet were pointed toward the bunker. And the round landed in the top of the tree that got him. It got all three of us. So he was slight. The tree was over here to his right rear, and the bunker is straight ahead, and he can make the right turn beside it. He was no farther from here to television from the corner. But when the round went off, you know what happened. A piece of shrapnel hit him behind his right ear and took all the back of his head off. But his feet kept going for a couple of steps, and that made them be out front. So he's laying with his feet toward the bunker, head back there. I reached down and felt, and his pulse was already gone. What you could feel was the reaction or something of, the body just moving, but I could find no pulse or nothing. I ducked back in there. We got that all cleaned up. About 8 hours later, we had the situation in control. Before sundown, they brought in a chopper, a medevac chopper, with the 2 escorts, and hauled out the wounded, brought in 2 more, and then hauled out the dead, and he was one of them. The lieutenant's gone. That left me there, and it took them 3. And we fought in there sporadically for the next 3 days, and eventually they got me out of there. Well, they brought in a new team after 3 days because it was no hurry.
Were you in med then? I mean, how bad were your wounds?
I was ambulatory. Wasn't no problem. Yeah. I could walk and run and fight. My worst wound was really right here in my hand. Mm-hmm. Hands puffed up there about that big, but I wasn't concerned about it because the Vietnamese had already did what they was going to do to it, which was to slap some iodine on it and ask you if you wanted a penicillin shot. Hell no.
Was this the first time you were wounded?
Oh, yeah.
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 Was it the only time, or?
No, I was wounded the second time also.
Your second tour?
Second tour.
So your first tour is over, you come back home?
I came back to Fort Hood, Texas.
Back to Fort Hood.
1st Armored Division.
1st Armored.
And went from one adventure to another. They all were one big adventure to me coming out of Brazos County.
Yeah, I guess.
I went to Fort Hood, and I was assigned as the Chief Tactical Instructor to the 3rd Corps NCO Academy. And it took me a minute to figure it out, but see, I went to when I'm assigned there as the Chief Tactical Instructor, that I had already attended 3 or 4 NCO academies. I had gone to that academy as the 1st Armored Division Academy twice. Once with the 1st Armored Division and once with the 4th Armored Division back early in my career. And then I went to the 1st Cav Division in Korea. And then I came out and I went to specialized training, was going to be down in Georgia. But I came back assigned out of Vietnam as the Chief Tactical Instructor. And I didn't want to. I didn't mind the assignment, but it took me about 20 minutes, took me about 5 minutes to figure out I didn't want it. Because I came in, being assigned by the Department of the Army, you should go protocol, say, you go to your unit and sign in. Mm-hmm. And then you go to the next highest headquarters. If you're assigned as an infantry 1st sergeant, then you sign in at the company. Now the man you're going to replace, be E3 or E8, can take you off his morning report, can terminate your leave and whatnot, mark your present for duty. Then you go to headquarters, though, after signing in 5-minute operation, and you report in at the next high headquarters, says, I'm here, and just sign in up there, let them know you're there. Mm-hmm. Well, I went down to the academy, and I signed in, and we got an E7 sitting there as the 1st sergeant. I eased on over to the school headquarters, which is a full colonel's in charge of it. Sergeant Major E9 sitting there. Signed in. Sergeant Major takes me in and introduced me to Colonel. Colonel started telling me all about how he run things and how he gonna run things. And the short story was, about 5 minutes later, I interrupted and told him, Colonel, I don't work for no E7. I'm not gonna be here in your company. He said, you gonna be here and you gonna work for the E7. I said, we'll see you, Colonel. Went out the door, come back later, about an hour later with my orders in hand, reassigned to 1st Armored Division because that was a 3rd Corps assignment. Mm-hmm. I just went on the Corps and told them I wanted to be over 1st Armored Division. They assigned me over there. I wound up back in my old unit for the third time. And that unit had just been activated. So they were looking for people to staff the organization. And went in there and they had a specialist 5, not a hard rock sergeant 5, as the first sergeant. Because one of those light infantry regiments had been formed up at Hood and shipped out to Vietnam, and they activated this battalion, my old battalion. They brought it back from dead in order to put all of the junk that wouldn't, and didn't want to go to Vietnam. The deserters, the court-martial people waiting court-martial, all of that criminality crap. And we are in 67. And people who are refusing to fight in Vietnam and stuff like this in American Union, all that junk, drug addicts and stuff they had in this company, in this battalion. The only, so far as I could see, the only leadership people they had in there were the junior officers. And I'm not talking about the captains, I'm talking about them first lieutenants and second lieutenants, the battalion commander, and the first sergeants. That hooked me up again with one of my first sergeant friends that we'd been serving together ever since we were corporals. And he always was junior to me because I got promoted ahead of him all the way down the line. But he was a real good fellow. Even one of the first sergeants had a profile heart attack. He died 3 years later. But our mission, when we got lined out, they started to fill us up. Our mission was riot control, because they had already burned down Watts one time and rioted in Detroit and everywhere else. My company was the primary company. This other company that is commanded by this, led by this first sergeant with the heart problem, he's my backup. My friend, he's got the rear detachment. In fact, we had to take his company and give me half of them to get it up to 250 man strength, and half of the officers to run a 8-man officer control unit with liaison and all that, split between me and this other first sergeant, and he's the support, with a third company coming out of one of the other infantry battalions, reinforced to make us what we need to be for riot control. Primary mission, New Orleans. My company was ready. And I didn't have any problem, disciplinary or otherwise. Because I found that the quest of soldiers is to do the job that they are assigned, draftee or volunteer.
Right.
What they're looking for, though, is fair treatment. It can be as hard as you want on, but you have to be fair.
Right.
If you're hard on one, you have to be hard on all of them. So I had no problem. And of course, when they killed Martin Luther King, the riots started in earnest. We got called out 4 o'clock in the morning. At 9 o'clock, we were sitting down at Bergstrom Air Force Base, loading up them. What were they flying at that time? They were civilian airlines. 147, what they call them?
The Convairs or the?
No. It's just civilian aircraft.
Oh, okay.
Them big first class aircraft. That's what Army. When the Army really want to move troops, they charter.
Right.
That's what flew in and out of Vietnam all the time.
Right.
Yeah. We were there, and
so you flew out of
Bergstrom Air Force Base.
In Austin to where?
Chicago.
Chicago.
See, New Orleans, Houston, Dallas, they all missed the revolution. They didn't do anything.
Yeah.
We went into Chicago. My kitchen went to Detroit.
So this is 1970?
1968.
68, that's right.
1968.
Martin Luther King.
Yeah. And
So were you at Chicago? Was this for the convention?
no, it was for riot control.
It was for riot after
Yeah,
MLK.
yeah,
Okay. Because
yeah.
yeah,
They killed him on in 1968 on one day,
yeah.
and immediately the next day, half the United States was going up in flames.
Mm-hmm.
And you could check this out if you care to. In 1917, MacArthur was called in to evict the tent squatters, World War I veterans. You know, the government didn't pay their bonuses and didn't kind of neglected the veterans. And he was called in, and he took his mounted troops, and he went in there and he flat kicked their butts out of the park. And no time in history after that did we ever declare martial law in a city and put active federal troops on the ground until Bailey took his unit into Chicago. The 82nd Airborne went to Detroit. And all these other riot control units went somewhere from the West Coast to the East Coast, to Boston, Massachusetts, to New York, and Detroit, and Chicago, and other places. None of them ever hit the ground in an active role. What they did was went in reserve in support of National Guards, local constabulary, reserves, and so forth. See, because the National Guard is controlled by the governor. And all of the rest of them, they did just, to include Illinois. Mm-hmm. They activated their guard and put them on the streets. Couldn't control the situation. So when we went in, we were the first time that the federal troops had been used to control the civilian population since MacArthur.
Right.
And like all riot control situations, there is a social, commercial street. Try University Drive. Try Main Street in Bryan. Try Martin Luther King in the minority area. You got it. In Chicago, it is South Side. The street is Hallstatt. And that's where the rioting occurred. To have a riot, you're always going to have two things available to make the riot. Without it, you ain't got it. One of them, you need this commercial area where there's something to be taken for nothing. You know? The dry goods stores, the eateries. And the very first thing, the liquor stores. The liquor stores is the first thing that is hit.
Right.
In a riot area, even when when they try to get it ignited again after you've got it in control, the first indication that there's something going on is you hear the glass breaking in a liquor store. Not in a department store, in the liquor store.
Yeah.
And that's what was happening. Back to the beginning, we were called out at 4 o'clock in the morning. At 9:30, we were loading down at Bergstrom Air Force Base on them whatever the biggest jet America was flying at that time. It was no damn whatever that thing is they fly out from France. No, but it was your big commercial jet.
Yeah.
With, by the way, civilian pilots and airline students.
747?
747.
Yeah, there you go.
Big 747.
Right.
And when we at 2 o'clock that evening, we were banking in the clouds up there over O'Hara Field, and the smoke was hanging at about 3,000 feet. So when you see under it, all you saw was a haze hanging over Chicago. They dropped us on the ground, and we went into Grant Park. More famous right now because Obama accepted his presidency or something from Grant Park, out on the shores of Lake Michigan. 9 o'clock the next morning, we were out of there, down to Jackson Park, where we were going to set up. We were just in preparation of going on the streets of helping control this riot situation. And everywhere now we're on buses from O'Hara Field over to Grant Park, and we're on buses from Grant Park over to the south side, escorted by a convoy of police. I believe every police in Chicago mobile unit was escorted. And we got into Grant Park, fell off the buses, lined up, duffel bags beside you, and the colonel says, I got a company commander who signed in yesterday that I had to call out of his quarters to join us. And it's like everything else. And I'm sure not going to say this. There's a difference between officers and NCOs. The officer is the commander. The NCO runs it. All of the belly aching and crying about the lost authorities that the NCO had in the old army, he ain't lost a goddamn thing. He gave it away on a platter. And all he had to do to advocate here was to stop taking the responsibility. Because when the officer comes around, if the NCO is not responsible, he can't be held for nothing. See? So when an officer comes around and calls out a squad leader and says, Sergeant so-and-so, I want you to take your 9 men and go here. That's the platoon sergeant's job. Platoon sergeant sit there. Now, he ain't got no responsibility. When things get screwed up, he ain't got no responsibility. He has to seek and accept the responsibility. So he gave it away, all of his authority, voluntarily. But he also gave away his responsibility. Right. Gave that away first. Naturally, the authority went with it. Anyway, I got this captain. He's just walking around looking. So we went in every time the colonel comes by. But this is the case all the time. Company commander and all the officers. The company commander will get the order. He'll give it to me. Fine. I get the platoon sergeant, give it to him, and it gets executed. And all you have to do is just stand there and watch the water flow. So he comes along and the colonel knows that the captain just got on board yesterday. So he cuts, company commander, first sergeant, come over here. Right there, creating a problem. Company commander don't feel like I ought to be given the order equally with him, you know? But the colonel knows what's going on. He knows the story. So here we go. First sergeant, you and your company commander, let's go on recon. Boom. Once again, all of these police and everybody, military police and cop, I told call platoon sergeant up here, we're going on reconnaissance. Put your bags in there, leave a guard on them. We're going to pick them up later. Keep your people right here. The National Guard come by on 2.5-ton truck, waving, hey, cheering. They have been relieved of duty. The streets are wide open. There's no authority down there. Nobody controlling anything. We go down there, and the colonel looks at the map. He said, the problems are here. The intelligence said the problems are from this block on Halstead, point A to point B. We got to control that. What's your recommendation? Well, that's just one street. How wide is the violent area?
Yeah.
Oh.
Go ahead and answer that. I'm going to check my recorder here.
Okay, you want to use the bathroom or something?
No, I'm fine.
Bailey. That's my son. He'll call back. Precluded people like me from doing anything other than having an opinion. Whether you agreed or disagreed. You couldn't hardly go out there having sworn an allegiance to follow these orders and do things contrary to your guidance system.
Right.
And worse than that, if you really didn't see or agree with the logic of it, and you were just kind of caught out there anyway. See, I never agree with no goddamn Black Panthers. Well, you ain't got no guns.
Mm-hmm.
You ain't got no aircraft.
Yeah.
You ain't got no war fighting capabilities of what the hell you got other than old rusty squirrel rifle or shotgun. What you're gonna do is get a lot of goddamn folks killed. The only way was Martin Luther's way, and anybody else was just blowing smoke up somebody's ass.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So when did you go back to Vietnam?
Immediately following that, because when I got back,
From Fort Sam? Or
we got back and I went down. The out briefing was held by the colonel and myself.
mm-hmm.
So that made me have two number one enemies after that. One of them was the sergeant major, who was the same rank as I was, but he outranked me. He's the sergeant major. Not only did he outrank me in that position, hell, he outranked me time and grade, time and service, and everything else. He'd been in the Army 25 years.
You're still a first sergeant?
I still was first sergeant.
Okay.
So we went along there, and see, he wasn't invited, could not go to the out briefing.
Mm-hmm.
And the company commander didn't go either because he couldn't contribute.
Mm-hmm.
So me and the colonel did the briefing for the battalion. And from then on, I had no problem with that company commander. Now, mind you, see, because when you in the service and you get above company grade officer, you get to be a field grade officer, major above, you know how things are supposed to go. You might not truly be a military oriented guy. More goddamn dead weight hides out in the Army because they can live forever doing nothing than any other place in the world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm sure that's right.
You might not agree with it, but that's it.
Yeah.
A guy can go in the military. First of all, let me clarify that. When I was in,
Right.
we got the best Army now we ever had, bar none. I don't give a damn about Patton and the rest of them.
Right.
I said the best Army. I didn't say the best leadership.
Yeah.
But we got the best Army.
Yeah.
It's the most highly motivated. They are well paid and they are well equipped.
Right.
And they will fight. And I know from Vietnam they will fight.
Yeah.
But there was a time a guy used to go in the Army and he made corporal or 6 or even E7 carrying a friggin' company commander's golf club, polishing his Jeep.
Mm-hmm.
And he's there wearing the stripes to lead and train men to fight and die. They weren't doing it. He'd go down to there, run the pistol range. No shit. And soon as he became senior in the company, he came back to be the first sergeant or platoon sergeant or whatever the next promotion was. When he got it, he was going back to the next damn and hide out for the next 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
But because I was myself and I ain't bragging, I just about had what I wanted because I had more than one brigade commander, battalion commander. They used to send me my company commander and say, if you don't want him, send back. And when I came out of Chicago, I had a company commander been there 2 days when we went, and it was his first company command outside Vietnam. And I guess he was a career officer, but the first thing he did start changing some of my rules and regulations. So I just went down there and told the colonel. He said, well, why don't you send him back to me? I said, hell, I'm going to leave him there because he's going to be around longer than I am, and he needs to learn. Somebody else can teach him.
Yeah.
And that was the end of it.
Yeah.
The colonel called, I don't know who he called that division, but he says, Bailey wants out and I'm going to let him go. I really hate to leave him all this. The general heard about it and he said, I got the job for him.
Right.
It was a the division division maintenance battalion, a headquarters and a company. 560 enlisted and 54 officers. Didn't matter to me. Wasn't my MOS. But leadership is leadership.
Right.
Yeah. From there, I went to Vietnam. 1st Care Division.
What year are we now?
69.
69. First calf.
1st Care. Back for the first time. I never got higher than a 4 in the numerical divisions. And that was only in the armor. See? 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th Army. And 1st Care Division, 1st Infantry Division. Those were my line unit assignments. And I went in there as a first sergeant, a senior first sergeant in the battalion as a support company first sergeant. Now, a support company is not the type you normally think about. We're talking about a tactical support company which supported the battalion in accomplishing their mission. My company had in it the mortar platoon, 4 deuces, a radar section, a recon platoon, searchlight battery, and it had also a hunter-killer team, which was something that was organized outside the wire.
Mm-hmm.
Sniper section, organized outside of the wire. Because if you really are military oriented or mission oriented rather than just looking for a place to hide out, then you look for ways to accomplish your mission, and sometimes, most of the time, they're going to be outside the wire. Hunter-killer team. Recon platoon was TO&E. Hunter-killer team is our thing. Along with the sniper, we send people to sniper school, bring them back, assign them to this unit. I had enough snipers. Every rifle company had 2 snipers, school trained. My hunter-killer team got 1. My reconnaissance platoons got 1. And the hunter-killer team, first of all, you find out, you know from your previous experience, and you just know first, what is the enemy's tactics? The NVA fought. They chose the time and the place.
Mm-hmm.
They'd be outside your wire there for 3 weeks and you would never know it. And they didn't move mass formation. I found out when I was there with the Vietnamese. The American unit moves. And they had figured out also that since Charlie selects the time and the place, we will accommodate him by letting him know where we are all of the time. When he chooses the time and place, we're going to overwhelm him with firepower anyway. Sure, we might lose 10 people, but we're going to kill 100 of them. Well, actually, what happened, we lose 10 and maybe we kill 2 of them. Our attrition was much higher than that. Of course, that ain't what the record books say now.
No.
But they still talking about the fabricated body counts and blood trails too, aren't they?
Right. Yeah.
Mm.
So as first calf,
Now you're in a war.
you're in a war. That's,
The American unit moved, and you could sit here, and you could hear them with their nest kits and their radios from here to the highway. Charlie didn't do that. He moved in small units. You didn't know he was there until he ambushed you. And that's exactly what we did with a hunter-killer team and a recon platoon. Recon platoon headed up by an E6. Hunter-killer team, an E6. And I used to go out with both of them. But you could take that 5-man unit or that recon platoon and you could move them from here to Navasota. And Charlie didn't know they were there. With the hunter-killer team, it was really outside the wire because we permitted them to wear whatever they want. Nobody wore hard hats and none of that stuff. Let me call you back, Kevin.
so you worked. you moved with the hunter killer team?
Lots. I'd go out with both them and the recon platoon. I was always in the field. I had a situation when I came into the unit. I always was. I considered myself to be a hard-nosed NCO. So when I came into the rear staging area, the rear fire support base of the battalion, I found sitting back there all of the first sergeants except one. 3 out of 4 first sergeants are sitting back there at the rear fire support base. Perfectly secure. You wander down in the village all day without, no organized resistance except from the American soldiers. And these 3 first sergeants, and this is shameful, are pulling guard on each other 24/7, protecting themselves from the American private. The one company's got his first sergeant in the field, first sergeant A company. He's in the field. His unit has got 123 people in it. Should be about 165 infantry company. He's got 123. These other rifle companies, all 3 of them, all 4, the other 3, none of them has more than 82 people in the field. Their first sergeant sitting back here with a 45 on, and 2 of them asleep. When he goes off, that's when they. We're into 69 and 70. So here, soldiers are refusing to go to the field, refusing to fight, I ain't going. And I'm flying in with a direct assignment to E Company, this thing, and I come in there and I go to the adjutant and I say, and we got a specialist 4 back there that is keeping control of things back there in the rear for the company. I want to see the morning report, how many people we got, where ordered. We have 15 people out of this little support company back there. I call a formation. I says, everybody get your gear together. We going to the field tomorrow. I can't go. I don't give a damn what you got. We going to the field. When you get out there, we'll send you back if you ain't supposed to be there. Doc gonna verify that shit out there in the field. And, well, you can hear somebody in the background saying, he ain't gonna last long. When Fred, he said, So I go to the mother first sergeant. I said, I got a chopper going out to the fire base in the morning. You can send all them goddamn people of yours laying out there. And you can come too. Oh, all of mine are confident. They got these excuses. What's your excuse? I didn't care. Got out there and they got off the aircraft. Recon platoon came in the next day, sent half of them out with them, kept a few around there for the mortars. And everybody was, hey Joe, what you? Shit. The next day, one of them was going back. He went to the medics and told him a rat bit him. That man spent a year in Vietnam, and he never did spend more than one night in the bush. He'd get to the 4 or 5 support days, and he'd tell him a rat bit him. And that meant he had to go back and take them 52 shots in the stomach for the next 6 weeks or something.
Yeah.
But he was willing to do that. But
rather than
being fight. The short story on that though is it was still a good tool because with my people after a while I didn't have no problem. But if you went to the care and you wanted to fight, your ass was in it more than you wanted to be.
Yeah, imagine. I
got in serious trouble more times than one, and I don't mean in the command structure. Lost some good people.
Yeah.
Me and that hunter killer team was out one time, and it was 8 of us, 7-man team and me. And we went into position a little earlier than this. And about an hour later than this, we went into position about 2 o'clock in the evening, and about 4 o'clock in the evening, we got in trouble. And when the dust settled, out of the 8 of us, we had 2 dead, and we had 2 dead and 3 wounded. So only 3 of us are still ambulatory. We had an extra man with us who was the S2, a captain, and he was kind of nervous on that one too. And we knew what we were getting into when we went, but that was the way we done things. We did so much damage, and I got nothing but admiration for the American soldier. And I'm not talking about the senior NCO or the general officer. I'm not even talking about any officer. I'm talking about that low pay grade private.
Yeah.
That bastard will do anything when the fight starts. It don't take long to separate the boys from the men. In this particular situation, the colonel called me in. Now at this time, you got to realize I have been called in and out as the battalion sergeant major on 2 or 3 different times. One, the sergeant major left on 30-day leave, extended and took a 30-day leave back to Georgia. That's great. Colonel Bailey, you're going to be my sergeant major till the sergeant major get back. Fine, Colonel. Zoom on over there. So, but 30 days, that just kind of stabilizes me back there with him. He's got his own aircraft, so we're flying in and out of hot zones, LZs, and everything. It's all right. And I'm still able to keep my thumb on my E company, my main job, see? Because all these divergent units, me and the company commander is the only cohesiveness it got.
What do you fly? You fly on Blackhawks or?
Blackhawks.
Yeah.
Blackhawks. So he said this day. So the sergeant major. So for 30 days, I'm a sergeant major, and I've got a Bronze Star for that around here somewhere, among the 4 that I've got. But I come in. He's on his way back, and the damn helicopter crashed, and he's killed. So that extended my tour with that until we get another sergeant major in. Okay, we get a sergeant major in. This sergeant major had been one of those I mentioned earlier. This man has got like 24 years in service. He's a command sergeant major and never had a command, and had never been overseas, has spent like 18 years in Fort Bragg, North Carolina. He was a master parachutist. But he did his first 4 years in the latter part of World War II in the occupation of England or somewhere. So consequently, he's walking around with 1 row of ribbons, and he's out to prove that he has guts from here to there. And he came in to replace the dead sergeant major. And I'm over there in my company, and we got everybody got the 100 kilo team in. So the colonel called me, come over to the top. He says, Bailey, we got information that the NVA is using the boundary between us and the 25th Infantry Division as a communications alley. They're moving troops and supplies because the division on all major units, division, you couldn't move or shoot within a 400-meter gap between the units. If you fired into that 200-meter area, you had to notify that unit through chain of command all the way from battalion back down to division on the other side. And I've got permission. I want you to take your hunter killer team in there this evening, tonight, and check that out for us and let us know. Now, first of all, you got to realize if you got 7, 8 people running around out there in a free fire zone, you ain't out there to fight in the first place.
Right.
We did horrific damage. But we never would initiate a fight. Never. We never even got into a firefight except one time or twice. And this is the first time we got in a firefight. So how are we gonna do that? Well, we got a rearmament point here for these Black Hawks and the them damn helicopters, the assault helicopters, you know, the gunships.
Yeah.
We got a rearmament point there for them. Missiles and their minigun ammunition and everything. And a refuel point. Because we are out there south of Tay Ninh, see. Tay Ninh is probably 50 miles from us, but that's the division headquarters. And we are sitting right behind Tay Ninh Mountain. The dividing line between, the boundary between us and the 25th is like 8 miles down the road. But we got this road, wrong plowed area, and then built a road that comes out of Tay Ninh all the way out, circle through them villages and come out. And bring in rearmament, to bring in POL, to refuel helicopters flying throughout the division during the day. They use that point in that area because the CAV has no wheeled vehicles. Everything is done, it's an air mobile unit. So the 25th, which has tanks and ground transportation, they gonna come in and bring in the POL, the refuel the helicopters, you know, to refuel the refueling point, and ammunition to resupply them when they fly in. They go out and shoot up the area all day, stop in there every 2 hours, refuel and rearm and go back out again. Fine. And they are escorted by an infantry company. So here comes this convoy, all these 113s and mobile carriers into there. And the plan is for me and my team to hop on these personnel carriers and go back out. Now this is a wrong plowed area, 200 meters wide, 100 meters on each side of the road, clear. Good. And the infantry escort for this crap on these 113s, the tactics is they just go in and out of the brush all the time, you know, just all over the area like rats. So we sit on the top of the vehicle. So when we get out to where we want to dismount, the vehicle just ducks in the wood line and we all hop out the back and the vehicle is gone in less than a minute. Just bust back out of the brush. Then we just walk on down there probably halfway from here to the creek and we find a trail network right on the border where we knew it would be. And trail coming straight into the position. As soon as they get in the woods here, one leg goes over here to the left, one over here to the right, and one keeps straight ahead. In other words, they can now break out. Mm-hmm. The captain that was commanding that convoy, he says, Bailey, I understand you're going back out with us. He said, yeah. He said, yeah, I heard about you. He said, I think you're a goddamn fool, but if you want to go out there and get dropped off, we'll drop you. Oh, by the way, took out a card. He wrote his alternate frequency down. He said, we monitor it all the time. Division don't monitor, but everybody else does. He says, if you get in trouble tonight, you call me, and I'll come get you. I said, okay. Stuck it in my pocket. Didn't think no more about it. We rolled on out there, jumped off the vehicle along with the captain we got from the S2, went on down there, set up the position. And 2 or 3 o'clock in the daytime, so ain't nobody gonna dig in. I told you that already. One man, machine gun over here, 3 people on this point, 3 in the rear. 9 people because we got this captain with us. Fine. I'm gonna be on this left flank over here. Machine gun is over there on that trail coming in. I'm on the trail coming in to the left. And we don't even worry about the trail where it goes to the right because we set up a point in the rear behind us that's going to be able to cover that part of it. And when you out there in the woods and you set up a nice position with the number of people we're talking about, it ain't going to be no bigger than from that wall to that wall. There's something else that go on in the cab. When night falls, when it gets 4 o'clock in the evening, first of all, at daylight in the morning, from 7 o'clock on, them helicopters be coming out. Treetop level. Them boys looking for something to shoot. Really? They come out at treetop level and they'll shoot water buffalo, pigs, villagers. It's a free fire zone. Ain't nobody supposed to be out there. So if you out there, you in trouble. 4 o'clock in the evening, they done been out there. Now they going back to a relatively secure area. They been out there risking it all day, flying treetop level, inviting a fight. They going back now. They so high. They are so high. When you see that helicopter up there, and he comes up in your sight over here at 10 o'clock, by the time he gets over here to 4 o'clock, it takes him an hour. He look like he about this long. He look like a giant mosquito up there. Yeah. That's how high. You didn't shoot at him today down here. You ain't gonna hit him now. He going back to the bar. It's a good time tonight to eat steak. But that's the way it is. So here we are. Long about 4 o'clock, they're all going back toward base. And you sit there a lot of times, you look at them lucky bastards. and you looking at a night there, half asleep all night. One of the guys say, long about 4 o'clock, we're getting ready now to get active. Been sitting around there sleeping and doing nothing all day. So me and this boy from Illinois is on, and another guy from Arkansas. We over here on this corner here. They said, how we gonna do the guard first? And I said, well, I'll just take the first shift, and then when I wake you up, you all can split the rest of it. Fine, because I know I'm gonna stay awake till about 3 or 4 in the morning. I got up, and we actually gonna hide behind this log looking out across the Rome Proud area where we can control the point coming right down the middle between us and the machine gun over there. And I got up, I did what I always do. I took 2 magazines, I put them right here, 2 over here, took my hand grenades off here, put 2 here and 2 here. Now, if a firefight starts in the middle of the night, I don't even have to look for that stuff. Magazine empty, grab one. Boom, keep fighting. Get close enough, hand grenade, grab, boom. You can do that. You don't have to feel around, you don't have to look. Stay right there. If you put your hand there on the log, they're there. And I got them all lined up. And Robin said, he had just asked me, how we gonna do this? And I happened to look up. I said, Robin, they're here now. He said, say what? So he grabbed his weapon, he rumped up beside show here. And there were these 2 NVA coming, and they were about far from here to that little circle, that little statuette thing my wife got there. And they were in the alert position. High port, their weapons up, so they can come down and shoot in any direction of AK-47. And they had on some kind of little black berets. And they were walking in a crouched position. I knew immediately that they knew we were there. They didn't know we were there, but they knew they were alert. And the reason they were alert, because when we got off the vehicle, we went out and set up the claymores. That's how we kill everybody. It's claymores, automatic ambush. We went out and set them up. But we didn't expect them to come through in daylight. So consequently, we didn't try to hide the evidence that we'd been out there. Grass this tall, we just walked through it, which meant we left trails going all out there and coming back and crossing from one side to the other. Don't step on the trail. So they had seen this broken grass. They're jungle fighters. They're aware of this. And they were already alert. And I said, I got the one in front, you got the one behind. Yeah, boom, they dropped. The guy over there on the machine gun said, "What's up?" I said, "We got two." He just starts shooting. We did it. Just what we always. S2 is calling the battalion commander by that time. "Got two on the trail. You kill them? Yeah. I'll be in and pick you up. We've compromised our position. We got to get out of here." This is customary. Man. So we did what we always do. We went down that trail with that. I took a 60. We took 4 people down the trail. We come back in there. We was carrying one dead one, and 2 were severely wounded. And they were helping each other. We walked down the trail, walked right on past them, just like always. This real man is gonna grab their packs, whatever. You know what I mean? You always grab whatever's immediately available. You don't search pockets and stuff, but if he got a pack on, ammunition, get that gun and all, go back. So, me and this Hispanic guy from San Antonio, I'm walking in the trail. He's walking to my left. We walk right on past. The machine gunner stops even, and the other man stops even over here to the rear. And I look. When we walked past him about from here to that piano. When I did, I looked. I seen a trail going out in the grass. Uh-oh. It wasn't our trail. Because we about out as far as we know. We out farther than we would normally go. And if we go any further, we're going to hit our own claymores. I said, uh-oh, we got problems. I told that guy over my shoulder, I said, "Look to your left and right out there about 20 feet. See if you see any trail going anywhere that we didn't put." He looked, he said, "Damn, I see 2. I said, "Okay." The guy in the rear in the meantime, he done stripped the packs off both of these guys. And we started backing up. When we did, that guy stood up right there. He may not have stood up because things happen so fast you don't really know. I think he stood up. Everybody else says, no, he didn't. He just started shooting at sound or held his weapon up and shot. Didn't matter. The first shot hit the machine gunner in the arm right here, and the bullet came out his elbow, so he's useless. The assistant was stitched right up and down here, so he not only was waving it around, he must have been going up and down. Shot him right up and down through there from his chest bone right on down to just by his navel. That man who was walking the rear with the stripped of packs, without a moment's hesitation, because me and everybody else hit the ground and just started shooting. And that big guy from Alabama, he just walked over there, picked up that machine gun without a moment's hesitation. And he's the person who really seen where the fire came from. He grabbed that M60, slung that belt over his shoulder, and started jacking, walking forward, pulling the trigger and trying to jack around in the chamber. But one of the bullets hit that damn receiver cover, and the gun was jammed and he couldn't get around it. And he walked, and you're the enemy and you're laying in that grass like from here to that front wall away from us. You done already fired on us because we were standing there talking. He realized we knew that they were there. Done killed 2 people already. So he just fired. But that guy walked, and I was saying, Parker, don't go out there, Parker. And he just kept walking, trying to make that gun fire. And that guy he held that gun up again and blew the top of his head off. Wasn't mine, blew the back of his head off. Now we in a real problem here. We got 1 dead now. And we got 2 wounded. Didn't before us go out there. I said, his boy from Illinois, and by this time, these 2 guys that are wounded, they helping each other. And they both cussing up a storm. This boy from Arkansas, he's seriously ill. The short story is, I drug Parker. Once again, it's one of them things you just don't want to do. But I had to go get Parker. I drug Parker back into the brush, and these two wounded people help each other. And we left that man from San Antonio. He's standing out there, and that's the bravest thing I ever seen. He's standing out there by his lonely. Ammunition slung across his shoulder, no shirt, hands on his hip, with that M16 like this. Y'all go ahead, I gotta let the motherfucker show his face. I mean, this is a tough kid. These two wounded people, they ain't no pushovers. Plonker. It was reinforced for me at that time, something that I had known, not from my first tour, but from the cab. I saw more action. I saw enough action to last 4 people a lifetime with the cab. I didn't see that much with the Vietnamese. It takes a man a long time to die. You know, you can kill a snake today at noon. At 4 o'clock, if you touch him, he's still probably living. His tail will do like it. It takes a man just as long.
Yeah.
It takes a man a long time to die. We used to set an ambush, and it'd go off at 11 o'clock. We ain't gonna go down there at night. We ain't going down there to see what happened.
Yeah.
You gonna stay right here. 9 o'clock that morning, you got to go, and you realize you may be walking into an ambush. They know that damn explosion didn't just happen.
Yeah.
They know probably that it didn't come in from a artillery or mortar because they didn't hear it.
Yeah.
They were walking and suddenly, boom. They know they hit a landmine of some sort. So you're going to walk down there now. They may, the wounded certainly. He can't go nowhere. He gonna just shoot your ass. So when you come out of this position, you come out with that M60 smoking. And with these, everybody's got extra M60 ammunition in this 7-man team. And you reconning by fire all the way down, once again, past the body in the trail, or the bodies in the trail. You strip them, and you done already call back to battalion. Aircraft is on the way. Rendezvous is already planned. And when you get everything that you gonna get, and this takes you about 5 seconds, it's hellfire for level. Running hard as you can.
Jeff, I've got
You got to go.
Well, I gotta go, but I wanna talk some more.
Go
First
ahead.
off, let me tell you that I realize.
Tell me about your program. That's
Well, I
it. Because
realize-
I ain't gonna get on there and get loose on the mouth like that.
Well, no. I understand. But one thing I have realized is that I can't tell your story in one show. So, if you will, we're going to do 2 shows.
Oh, no.
Yeah, no, I got to. I mean, there's too much to tell.
Let's do
So
one.
we're going to do 2 shows right at the same time. I mean, we're going to do them back to back. We're not
Oh,
gonna,
okay.
We're not going to come at 2 different times. We're
Okay,
gonna,
well, you're going to have to guide me because
I am. We're going to do a 30-minute show, and then we're going to break, and then we're going to do another 30-minute show. But it won't take, it'll take
Okay.
about an hour to do it because we
Okay.
just do them back to back. I'd like to, if it's okay, I want to do them Thursday at 2:30. Is that going to be okay?
It's going to be all right with me.
Okay, over at KAMU, and I'm gonna. Do you know the A&M campus very well?
I know it fairly well.
Um,
So, he gave the order to ceasefire. Everybody stopped firing. And I was dumb enough to be up on top of this bunker. I mean, standing up there. There's the bunker, like head high. And with fighting ports and all that. And I'm up on top of that bunker. And soon as they said ceasefire, and everybody stopped firing, the flares went out. They had a break in it, which shouldn't have been, because the searchlight battery was covering that area down to the east. And this guy started screaming again. And nobody could see anything. So they fired up ammunition for another 10 minutes, and then the colonel gave the order to ceasefire. And I don't see nothing. And I was still on top of that bunker. And once again, because you try to time your illumination where one flare comes on like 5 seconds before the other one go out, because the time is like 1 minute burning time, 65 seconds or something. And I was up there course, I wasn't convinced that the boy did see something. I didn't consider him to be just stone crazy up there, scared shitless, to put it bluntly. And I was just happened to be looking around, just kind of, and this flare went out. And when a flare starts to go out, it starts to stream off all of these sparks. They just start to shed off like Christmas tree lights. It's supposed to go out. And it went out. This is my wife, Mr. Turbiville.
We met outside.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we sure did. We met outside. Yeah.
And just as this flare went off, there was a pause of dark, because normally what you got, when this started to fall, the other one pops about that time. And it doesn't just pop instantly like flashing on an electric light. It comes on a smaller glow, and then it expands to max illumination. Short story was, just as that flare started to drop off stuff and go out, just the instant it went dark, this guy had to get up and start to move. And he was like closest from here to the kitchen sink from me. That's how close they were to the bunkers already at that time. And that other flare popped. And I guess he was courageous enough, he just gonna take him, he had a time. But I saw him, when that thing started to illuminate, I saw him as he was going to the ground, you know, because he don't just fall, you know, he just leaned over and he hit the ground in the prone position. It was too late, I had him. I knew where he was and I knew what to look for. And I'm not lying to you, within my range of vision, there had to be 15 out there. And they were as close as from here to that window from me. And
All 15 of them.
yeah, I mean, from the wire.
Right.
Because, of course, the bunkers are like 15 feet apart or something.
Yeah.
And I could see them in front of both the bunkers, left and right, and it just in the sector I was looking at. And I started, and I said, gave the command to commence firing, and then started, we had an M60 in the bunker. I had the guy to bring the M60 up. Now, I'm up on top of the bunker, standing on top of the bunker, fully silhouetted in this light, but you don't be thinking that, see? By that time, you're so excited and the adrenaline took over and all you want to do is kill some folks. And I had that M16 and I wasted clip after clip at this guy. He continued to crawl parallel in my position, and then he turned and started to crawl away from me. And it's just no way you can just take that gun and say pop, 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 and knock and dust up all around this guy and not hit him, you know. I said, damn, bring me that M60 up there. They brought up the M60, and I had told everybody else the shoot where my tracers were going. And I brought that M60 up, and I must have wasted 1,000 rounds of ammunition. I never hit this guy. And the only thing he would do is crawl a ways and turn and go that way another way. By then, he's probably about as far as from here to your car out there from me. I said, give me that M2 now. And I can see this guy, and I'm pissed off, and I'm locked in on him. The hell with the rest of them, even if they're close, I got to kill this guy. This was my trophy. I fired that M79, boom, it exploded, and you don't see nothing but dust. Shoo! When the dust cleared, he's still crawling. I loaded that M79, I fired another one, and the only thing he did was flip him over on his back, and he just rolled right back the way he kept going, you know. So I had to let him go. By then, he was back past the second strand of wire. We continued to shoot at the rest of them. And by now, other people, because I can describe the situation, other people were beginning to spot them and see what they were looking for. And we brought in the gunships and that damn Puff the Magic Dragon, that cargo plane with all the miniguns. And we just kind of saturated the area the rest of the night and the next morning. And but sometime after I started shooting at other targets, I was still up on top of the bunker. All of a sudden, something hit me in my left shoulder, right in the flusher part here under my arm. And it felt like somebody hit me with a hammer. Everything went dead, knocked me off the top of the bunker, and I fell behind the bunker. That's when I got my second Purple Heart. I got back up, looked around, Told the guy, tell the medic to come over here because everybody want to know what happened to this person. I said, well, the bastard shot me. And that really pissed me off. But when daylight came the next morning, and nobody moves out of position until it's good in daylight. Besides, we got all the booby traps, mine, everything out there. And you could see bodies out there. We had 33 bodies out in front of the position. And 180 Bangalore torpedoes. And what we determined it was a sapper attack. And
A what attack?
sapper unit.
Okay.
And but we also determined that I was shot by a sniper from out in the wood line, which is like about 4 hours from here to my barn from the fire base. Because all 33 of these people, and you never seen it, and you wouldn't believe, was stone buck naked.
Huh.
They didn't have on a stitch of clothing.
Really?
The only thing they had was Bangalore torpedoes and wire cutters and hand grenades. And we didn't know at the time. It had never been brought to our attention. But that's a sapper outfit. Is kind of like a suicide outfit, and it is a specialized unit. Mm-hmm. And the reason they are naked is because that allows their total body to feel tripwires and flares and stuff like that. The booby traps you got out there.
Yeah.
And of course, crawling through the triple concertina wire, there's nothing to hang on.
Right. Right.
But that was our first experience with them. And
Now, where did you spend the night? I mean, where did you hang out? Just in the bunker, or were you taken care of, or?
Oh yeah, we got medics there.
Okay,
we got
so
everybody back in there. We've got a battalion aid station.
Yeah. So were you patched up, or?
Oh yeah. It was just a flush wound.
Uh-huh.
It went in the meat right here and right out the other side. The only thing I got out of that was just a clean hole.
Yeah.
But that was an amazing deal for me. Not the wounding, but to experience that particular attack.
Here's why, when you're describing all this, I keep going back to the book and the movie We Were Soldiers.
I didn't read the book or see the movie.
Or see the movie. Yeah. You heard about it? That We Were Soldiers. That was Cav 1.
Somebody
early in the Vietnam War.
Somebody was telling me about it.
The movie,
I believe it was the 7th Cav, wasn't it?
Well, it was
up in our Drink Valley.
Yeah, right,
Yeah.
right. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
I read the book. I read the book.
Yeah,
on
so
that.
the book was called We Were Soldiers and Young Ones. And then the movie was called We Were Soldiers. And it was, what's his name?
Gary Owens is commanded by a colonel that they organized him at Benning.
Yeah.
And he trained them and took them in there.
Right. And the movie was...
I remember.
What's his name? The actor. Oh, shoot. The famous actor was starred in the movie. My mind's gone blank. But anyway, what you're describing is... This movie's probably the best Vietnam movie I've heard, as far as realistic.
It was a tough situation for
Yeah.
And what we realized right away, you can get engaged in every situation almost is different. You can't predict what they're going to do. Mm-hmm. And in this case, we knew the next day when we round up all of these stuff, and I don't know if I got pictures of it around here somewhere. Probably not, because crap like that didn't interest me too much.
Yeah.
But we had the Bangalore torpedoes lined up, so you just knew what they would do because of other incidents that happened throughout the area. What they do is screw these Bangalore torpedoes together, lay them right at the base of the bunker, detonate bunker gone, everybody on top, kill the whole crowd. They'll breach your line right there. Once they do that, hey, man, running through the compound, and you're sitting there in a compound that is probably about as wide as from here to that property line over there. Okay, 150 yards or maybe max wide, and probably about the same long, and they generally shaped in an oval shape. Mm-hmm. And Once they breach that line, though, particularly since they're hitting you from all sides, which they were doing, they identify each other because it's just pure pandemonium and panic inside one of them outfits.
Yeah.
You want to know what a lot of people did and what. Now, what they're going for is the top tactical operations center. In there's going to be your command, your command staff, the colonel and the S1, 2, 3. And of course, when you knock this out, also goes the communication, so you're getting support from higher up is always a problem.
Right.
And if they get you more than artillery, they start dropping right back on you.
Right.
Yeah.
So in the second tour, how many situations like this were you in? I mean, where you were.
Well, a situation like that, that was a defensive situation, and we weren't in a lot of defensive situations. That was a defensive situation.
Yeah, right.
We were just sitting there waiting on them. We had pulled in all the line coming, so we were well secured, and we were waiting on them. Most of the time, what you got is you were out there, like Navasota, everybody else is back here. Now, some of those situations were kind of unreal. The next incident, the major incident, was the one I was telling you about, where the 25th Infantry Division dropped me off, and that commander gave me that it's call sign, you know, it's frequency.
Right.
And that's the one I was talking about yesterday when we quit. This one here that I just described, it was behind me by now.
Right.
And we have had others in between time, but on that one, and this man literally, this captain, he literally, without a doubt, even though I lost 1 man and 2 wounded in that operation, he literally saved my life that night. Not just me, but the other personnel to include the S2 captain.
Yes, sir.
Because, I've never met the individual. Only thing I did was wrote him up for an award. But he has my undying admiration. Because initially after the attack, and we went out there and lost the people with this by 1 or 2 guys. We got 2 people out there that's dead, but it's one person in particular, the one who was doing the shooting at the first initially.
Right.
He is wounded 2 people severely. They no more combat serviceable ever after the rest of their lives, and done killed 1 guy. So you know what our reaction is. Just as soon as we call a battalion, call in that we have contact, and a quick sit rep that we got 2 people on the trail. We're gonna go out and grab the evidence and clear out the battalion commander. So that's great. His chopper's on the pad because it's getting about 5 o'clock in the afternoon.
Right.
He says, "I'll pick you up." Yes, sir. And in 10 minutes, he's there to pick us up. But in 10 minutes, which action takes place where these people get killed, and I retreat again, we all retreat back to this little hole. He come flying in there, in that Huey, and he got down about as low as these trees around here. And one of them individuals, he didn't even stand up. He just cut loose with that AK-47. And in one furrow swoop, put 17 holes in it. That old chopper said, "Yeah." That was the end of the battalion commander. Picking us up.
Wow.
He flew that wounded bird back there. And once again, it's only like 3 miles away. Hell, you can see it when it's settled down. You can't see it when it's on the ground. And we ain't about to walk out of there, because if we turn our back, you know what happened. So, naturally, here's what happened. We call in, they're going to bring in a medevac to pick up the wounded and the dead. And it's being escorted by 2 gunships. And they got a Huey behind it that's going to pick us up. And this ain't no lie. And I'm extremely fortunate to be around, and I'm not
Yes,
too
sir.
long home. I'm just saying, because I was kind of stupid.
I wouldn't say
Here
that.
come these birds, and they're coming down this wrong plowed area, down the gravel road. And they turn, when we tell them to, and then they come in parallel to our position. And and I say, the captain on the radio said, hold it, you're right in front of our position. They said, we're going to set down the medevac and you load the wounded. We're going to escort them out. Fine. I got up out of the position and the birds are heading east in this direction. The one on the outside is flying high.
Right.
The one on the inside is flying low and the medevac is in the center. And this guy ain't 5 feet off the ground on the inside.
Right.
That medevac started to sit down, and when he did, that same person stood up out there or somebody and cut loose on that medevac ship. And the birds and them old boys are sitting there with finger on the trigger. The instant said pop, 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 pop. That AK-47, which is off to the left flank, they don't even swivel or try to, we getting out of here. This is a hot area. And that guy that was on the inside, I'm telling you, he's close to our position. Them guys are good.
Yes, sir.
They can put that rotor within 5 feet, like from here to that door to the tree line,
Right.
And when that guy start punching holes in the aircraft, though, ain't no smooth operation of sticks. This is a jerk. Let's jump it up in the air first we can and get the hell out of here. We didn't lose any choppers, but we had 4 of them shot up that night. They gave up and said, we can't extract you. You're going to have to hold to daylight. And because the camp has no vehicle.
Right.
The battalion commander, they were debating about whether or not to walk a rifle coming in. That ain't happening at night. And then I remembered that captain.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't care at this time. I'm just cussing up a storm on hell. I get my own self. I dial that old radio over on that captain's frequency, and you have call sign, and I said, this is Blue Turtle 1 or whatever my call sign was.
Mm-hmm.
He said, yeah, you fucked up. He said, you in trouble. I've been monitoring the frequency. Once again, we sitting in that 200-meter dead zone between the divisions.
Uh-huh.
He says, I'll come get you. And he said, it'll take me about 20 minutes. I said, bring it on. And then we switched back up on the battalion frequency. And the battalion commander wants to know what's going on because he's getting heat down through the chain of command from the division commander staff up there all the way down through there because they know that this captain is moving and he's moving without orders.
Right.
Nobody can tell him what to do.
Right.
I mean, he ain't got no authority to be going on operation at night. And in about 15 minutes, you can hear the tracks on the vehicles because he got tanks, personnel carriers, and other type of track vehicles. You can hear just about 5 minutes you can see the lights. He's running with all his headlights on. And all you can see is the front headlights and dust that's illuminated behind him like a half a mile. He says, tell me when I get exactly halfway, some of my convoys is directly in front of your position. When I told him to halt, he did. They just did a right turn and came straight across the field, slow, in low gear, and just walked them vehicles right on up to us. When he got to the wood line, he says, step out there, First Sergeant, and tell me what vehicle's in front of your position. I stepped out there and it was a 113, like A56 or something, the bumper number. He told that guy, swing around and drop the ramp. That guy put that thing in what we call counter stir, one track forward, another one back, and spun it on. Dropped that ramp, combat. We loaded up. When we loaded up, he said, commence firing. And they lit up the woods. They took us all the way back, took us over to at that Tanian Fire Base in the 25th Infantry Division, and then the Cav came in with their choppers and helicopters out of there.
Mm-hmm.
All the wounded and the dead went one way, and we went back to the unit. And I don't know what happened to the captain, nothing much, except that he He probably got another award in addition to, we recommended him for a Silver Star. I don't know what happened.
Right.
But
You were awarded the Silver Star.
Oh yeah.
Was that your highest?
Oh yeah.
That's your highest award.
Yeah, that's high enough
That's high.
for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And was that for what you described during this firefight in '69?
That was in that action I just got through talking about.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
that was in that action.
Right. Right.
It's probably in one of those books. I don't think it's in.
There's a lot in these books.
Oh yeah, you got.
Yeah, I wanna. If I can, I'd like to borrow these books and give them back to you tomorrow.
It's gonna be in that book.
Right.
Cause it ain't in the other one. I just looked in the other one, and like I said, that stuff is. What's that?
That's a bronze star. That's a bronze star. How many bronze stars
Silver
did you
star
get?
right
That's
there.
Silver Star.
I got about 3 bronze stars, 2 with V device. I got one
Right.
Archon with a V device, but that was the Silver Star.
Now, did you get a Purple Heart twice or once?
Twice.
Twice for both your in
Right.
Vietnam.
You got most of the stuff in there.
Yeah, I got everything.
And everything
Now,
I got in there, just whatever my wife
Now, I
put
saw a
together,
couple
because I
of,
made no effort to save anything.
now I saw a couple of pictures. I was going to ask you if you were in. Is this you here?
Ask me that.
Is that during training or what is that?
No,
Where is that?
Yes, that's doing training. That's one of them organizational thing they deals, and that's doing the. That's in between. Yeah. Wait a minute. No, I'm trying to think.
But that's mortar. Is that mortar training? Is that
That's an infantry company.
infantry company?
Yes, I was first sergeant. Then that is in between. That was during my last tour. I'd been to Vietnam twice then.
Right.
And you can see I didn't put that together. You
No.
gotta keep switching the pages around. That's the same exercise. That's just preparation to do that. Call that
Oh, okay.
the first sergeant race or something. They put you in a 1/4 ton Jeep and you had to get 2 of your men to pull it, maybe race and 2 pulling, 1 pushing. Or something.
So this is just like a buggy, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a little trailer for a Jeep.
Trailer for a Jeep.
Jeep
yeah.
trailer.
And that was a training exercise. So where would this picture
That's
been
Fort
taken?
Hood.
At Fort Hood, yeah.
Right.
So this would have been before you went?
No, it's after I've been.
After the second
would've-
tour.
That's right. That would have been in 72.
Okay. So you came back on your second tour and came back to Fort
Fort
Hood?
Hood again.
And you stayed in for what, another year or so?
I came back in August of 70 and got
Oh.
out in January of 73.
Okay,
It
so
was like
so
2.5
another
years.
2.5 years. And did you stayed at Fort Hood the rest of the time?
On that tour?
Uh-huh.
Yes, I didn't have another assignment.
So after you left Vietnam, you
Right.
Fort Hood, that was it. And
Right.
so you were training you were training
Well, just a regular company. Training a regular company.
training other soldiers that were going
No, they weren't going in. It was just part of a combat
part
ready
of a
unit.
combat ready. Yeah.
Right.
So you got out in August 73,
Right.
August 73,
That's
Or-
right. That's right.
and then how'd you get here? What brought you to Bryan College Station? I mean, where did you?
This is home. I told you.
Yeah, right. So you came back here
Oh yeah. Yeah.
because you
But I started-
came back to Benchley.
Right.
Yeah,
I came back to Bryan.
to Bryan.
See, I came out of Alaska in '59 from the Arctic Test Center,
Yeah,
and I bought my first house, my
right,
first home,
right,
which was on Ash Street.
right.
So, and the reason I done that is because I knew that I would be going overseas. Some tours unaccompanied, like Korea, which I figured I was up for next, which I did.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, I preferred that my wife have her own house and run her own business, not live with my family or hers or anybody else. So I bought my house. And so when I went overseas, she had her house and her car. She's
How
a
long
young
have you
woman.
and Ola been married?
55, it's 53 years.
53 years.
54 in December.
So you were married in 1955?
1955, December the 11th in 1955.
I see. So that was when you'd come back from Germany? Had you already been
That's
to Germany?
exactly where I was coming from.
When you came back from
Came
Germany?
back from Germany.
I see.
With the first infantry division.
Right, right. So after you came back from Germany?
Right.
Yeah,
See, our families have known each other forever.
yeah,
Forever.
right,
I didn't know her, but she knew me, but I didn't know her.
right.
And they lived out here in Highway 21 West, a little farther out between here and the Brazos.
Uh-huh.
I lived up there in Benson.
Right.
And there, she has an auntie, her mother's sister, who was our next door neighbor. She lived, their place, her farm was directly behind my grandfather's. They used to come visit my grandfather. So I knew her auntie and her husband, I knew them well, like kids growing up knowing people. We call her Miss Willie.
Mm-hmm.
Made some good tea cakes. But she didn't have any children, so, you know, we was always hanging out at their place. But I didn't know my wife, but she knew me because, you know, when they'd come visit her on a bi-monthly basis or something, she'd see me running around there with the rest of my relatives.
Yeah. So when did you get in the trucking business?
1st of February, day after I retired.
Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah. That's exactly right. That's what I was saying. Why I basically knew what I was going to do.
Uh-huh.
And spending all that time in armored vehicles, you know the maintenance program and what's required and all that. And additionally, my father.
It was your MOS.
That's right.
So
My father and my grandfather, they had always owned trucks there on the farm.
Mm-hmm.
And these trucks weren't. They were used for commercial, haul the hay, take the cotton to the gin, and during the seasons, to haul people to and from the fields.
Right.
My grandfather was always an enterprising man. He used to take a truckload of what amounts to his migrant workers, me and his kids and 2 or 3 other families, when the crops were gathered here and go up into West Texas and in that big cotton field. That's all West Texas was, the hill.
Yeah.
And we spent a month or 6 weeks up there and come back here then in October, November, December, whatever was right, yeah.
So so the trucking business has been going since 73.
Since 73. Yeah.
How many kids y'all have?
4.
Y'all have 4 kids?
4.
And are they all around here, or are they?
Yeah, you see these other houses?
That's where they are, huh?
That's where they
How
are.
many grandkids?
5.
5 grandkids. Any great grandkids?
No great grandkids.
Okay.
I live here.
Uh-huh.
My oldest daughter lives there.
Yeah.
My youngest son lives in the next house.
Uh-huh.
My daughter lived in the last house on the same side as he's on.
Right.
And my oldest son lives across the street from her.
And he's kind of running the business now.
My youngest son
Your
running
youngest
the
son
business.
Yeah, I met him outside.
My oldest son, he doesn't want to run the business.
I
We
see.
gave him that opportunity, but he did it for 2 or 3 months, and then he says, "I'd just rather drive my truck." He doesn't have any kids. He's married, but all he wants to do is drive his truck.
Well, Jeffrey, what I want to do, we're going to do 2 shows, and you know, I wish, and that means we're going to talk for about an hour, a little less, in 2 different shows. And what I'd like to do is in the first show, I'd like to cover Germany and Alaska and your first tour of Vietnam. If we can get all that in the first show.
We can get it.
And in the second show, I'd like to cover mainly Chicago and your second tour of Vietnam.
All right.
Those are the main things I want to touch on. And then as we have time, you know, we might, you know, come back to your youth. And then at the end, I want to talk, you know, just quickly talk about your family and stuff like that. But I'd like to divide it up into those 2 shows. So we're going to have to, and you don't worry about, you're just going to talk to me just like you've been talking to me yesterday and today. And I'll move us along.
Okay.
You know, we won't be able to, the time goes by a lot faster than you think.
Yeah.
And so we won't be able to get into nearly as much detail as we've gotten into now. So that's where I'll...
That's my fault, but I like
No,
to
it's not your fault
explain.
because I like to have it all here and just for the history part of it. But so we'll have to, you know, skip over a lot of the detail. But just like you've talked to me with your personality and everything, we'll have to, of course we are on TV, so we'll have to, you know, be nice on the language and all that.
Yeah,
But,
I've had my time in front of the
Yeah.
camera before. It won't be
You
the
know,
first
I'll
time.
bet you have. And like I said, this is all recorded. It'll be on the air probably in about a month or so. I'm running about that far ahead of time. But I'll get you DVD of the shows and all that. You'll have all of that. So it's just a fascinating story. I mean, it's just and your service is just amazing. I'd like to get, if I can, I'd like to borrow these and give them back to you tomorrow. I'll take very good care of them.
Okay.